I stood at the altar, my heart racing in my chest, a delicate veil framing my face like a soft cloud. The church was a vision of elegance, adorned with white flowers and flickering candles that danced in the gentle breeze from the open windows. Friends and family filled the pews, their smiles wide and their eyes shining with love and anticipation. As I glanced at my reflection in the polished wooden surface of the altar, I could hardly recognize the bride staring back at me. My cheeks were flushed with nervous energy, and I could feel the weight of the day pressing down on my shoulders. "Emily, you look stunning," whispered my best friend Sophie, adjusting my bouquet of lilies and roses. Her presence was comforting, though I sensed an undercurrent of tension in the air. I offered her a tight smile, trying to shake off the feeling that something was amiss. "Where's Daniel? He should be here by now," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "Maybe he's just caught up in traffic," Sophie replied, her tone soothing, but I could see the flicker of concern in her eyes. I wanted to believe her, but my heart felt heavy with an inexplicable dread. I took a deep breath, trying to focus on the love I had for Daniel. The memories flooded my mind. Our first date at that little cafe downtown, his laughter echoing in my ears as we played silly games at the arcade, the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the world. I closed my eyes, allowing those moments to wash over me, hoping they would quell the nervous flutter in my stomach. As the minutes ticked by, my heart began to race uncontrollably. "He's late," I murmured, biting my lip. "What if something's wrong?" "Emily, calm down. He'll be here," Sophie reassured me, but her voice lacked conviction. I could feel my breaths becoming shallow, each tick of the clock amplifying the anxiety swirling within me. I glanced at the guests, their chatter fading into a dull roar as my mind raced through worst-case scenarios. "Maybe I should go check," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, a blend of confusion and worry. I needed to see him, to reassure myself that everything was as it should be. "I'll be right back," I added hastily, before stepping away from the altar. As I walked toward the church entrance, I could hear the soft hum of music playing in the background, but it felt distant and surreal. I stepped outside into the cool air, my heart pounding in my chest. The church was situated on a quiet street, and I walked around the building, hoping to catch a glimpse of Daniel. The sun was shining brightly, illuminating the vibrant flowers in the garden, but all I could feel was a gnawing sense of unease. "Daniel!" I called out, my voice echoing in the stillness. With each passing second, my worry deepened. Where could he possibly be? My mind raced with thoughts of him being stuck in traffic, or maybe running late because he wanted to make a grand entrance. Yet a small, nagging voice in the back of my mind whispered that something wasn't right. I continued to circle the church, my heart pounding louder with each step. I had to find him. I needed to know he was okay, to see his reassuring smile that had always calmed my nerves. My thoughts drifted to our plans for the future, the life we had dreamed about together. I felt a strange mixture of anticipation and fear, wondering if today would truly mark the beginning of our forever. Suddenly, I spotted a shadowy figure at the side of the church, and my heart leaped in hope. "Daniel!" I called again, rushing forward, my heart racing with newfound determination. But as I drew closer, I felt an icy grip of dread closing around me. The figure I saw was not Daniel. I stepped into the cool air outside the church, my heart racing. The sun was shining, but all I could feel was the cold grip of anxiety tightening around my chest. I needed to find Daniel. He should have been here by now. As I rounded the corner, I spotted a narrow alleyway that led to the back of the church. My instincts urged me to go that way, so I followed the path, each step echoing my growing dread. As I approached the mouth of the alley, I caught sight of a familiar figure. My heart sank when I realized it was Daniel, but he wasn't alone. Sophie, my best friend, stood there with him. My breath hitched in my throat as I watched them embrace, their laughter ringing out like a cruel taunt. They stood so close, their bodies entwined, and in that moment, it felt as if the world around me vanished, leaving only the hollow ache of betrayal. "Daniel!" I called out, my voice trembling as I stepped forward. The moment he turned to face me, I saw the shock etched across his features, quickly replaced by something I couldn't quite place. Guilt? Fear? Or was it simply annoyance at being caught? "What are you doing here, Em?" he stammered, taking a step back from Sophie, who looked equally startled but less remorseful. I was looking for you. We're supposed to be getting married, remember?" My voice cracked, and tears pooled in my eyes, blurring my vision. "How could you do this to me?" "Emily, please," he started, but I cut him off, my emotions boiling over. "Please? You think that's enough? You're with her, Daniel, my best friend!" The betrayal felt like a knife twisting deeper with every word I spoke. Was it all a lie? Our whole relationship? He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck as he glanced at Sophie, who had fallen silent, her expression unreadable. "It's not what you think. It was never just about us. Our families." "Stop! Just stop!" I shouted, my voice echoing off the brick walls surrounding us. "I can't believe this. You were going to marry me for a business arrangement? For our families?" He hesitated, and in that moment I could see the truth in his eyes, a truth I had been too blind to acknowledge. "It was a financial alliance, Emily. You have to understand." "Understand? I can't believe you'd even try to justify this. I gave you everything." My heart felt like it was shattering into a million pieces. I couldn't breathe, the weight of his words pressing down on me. "I never meant to hurt you," he said, desperation lacing his voice. "I thought we could find a way to make it work, but—" Make it work? With her? I gestured wildly towards Sophie, who stood frozen, her gaze flickering between us. "What do you think I am? A pawn in your game?" I turned on my heel, my mind racing. I couldn't stay here, couldn't let them see the pain etched across my face. As I stumbled back toward the church, thoughts whirling, I felt a surge of defiance. This wasn't how my life was supposed to play out. I had to escape this nightmare, to reclaim my identity from the ruins of this shattered dream. In a moment of impulsiveness, I grabbed the hem of my wedding dress and ripped it, the sound tearing through the silence like a gunshot. The fabric fell away from me, leaving behind the weight of expectations and the facade of a future I never truly wanted. I ran, my heart pounding, my breath coming in quick bursts. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to leave. As I dashed toward the back of the church, the world around me blurred. I could hear the distant sounds of music and laughter, but all I could focus on was the freedom I craved. I needed to find a place where I could breathe, where I could gather my thoughts and figure out what came next. Suddenly, I spotted a small park nearby, a tranquil spot hidden away from the prying eyes of the church. I darted into it, collapsing onto a bench, my body trembling with the release of pent-up emotion. I buried my face in my hands, letting the tears flow freely, the loss of my dreams crashing down around me like waves. What would I do now? I had no idea, but deep down I felt a flicker of determination ignite within me. I wouldn't let this define me. I would find my strength, no matter how long it took. The moment I stepped into Michael's modest home, a wave of exhaustion washed over me. The walls were adorned with family photos, each one telling a story of love and resilience. I felt like an intruder in this space filled with memories, yet I was too shattered to care. I sank onto the worn-out sofa, the fabric rough against my skin, and let out a shaky breath. Michael, with his kind eyes and gentle demeanor, sat across from me, his expression a mix of concern and understanding. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice barely above a whisper. I glanced at him, feeling the weight of my pain choke me. "I don't know," I confessed, my voice breaking. "Everything feels so unreal. I thought I was getting married today. I thought Daniel loved me." Michael leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. It's okay to feel lost. You trusted him, and he betrayed that trust. That's not your fault. The tears I had been holding back finally spilled over, and I buried my face in my hands. I can't believe this is happening. I feel so humiliated, so foolish. He reached out, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. You're not foolish, Emily. You're stronger than you realize. You're just processing everything. I wiped my tears and looked up at him, seeing genuine compassion in his eyes. I just don't understand how everything went so wrong. Was I just a pawn in their game? Our families? Were they really only interested in business? Michael's brow furrowed as he considered my words. Sometimes families put pressure on us to conform to their expectations. They forget that we're individuals with our own hopes and dreams. I nodded, feeling a flicker of anger rise within me. My whole life has been about pleasing them. I thought I was doing the right thing, but now I feel like I've lost everything. Not everything, he said gently. You still have your life, your choices. You can decide what to do next. The warmth in his voice stirred something within me. It was a reminder that I still had autonomy, that I could reclaim my narrative. What do I do, though? I don't even know where to start. Let's take it one step at a time. Why don't you think about what you truly want? Not what your family wants, but what you want. His words hung in the air, prompting me to reflect. I want to be free. I want to live my life on my terms. The realization felt liberating, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my chest. Then let's start with that, Michael encouraged. You deserve happiness, Emily. I took a deep breath, the air filling my lungs with a newfound sense of purpose. I need to see my grandmother. She always seemed to understand me. Maybe she can help me figure this out. Michael smiled, and I noted the kindness in his expression. That sounds like a good idea. When do you want to go? Soon, I replied, my voice steadier now. I just need to gather my thoughts. He nodded in agreement, and we sat in silence for a moment, allowing the gravity of the situation to settle. I could feel my heart begin to beat with a sense of hope, a feeling I hadn't experienced since everything fell apart. Emily, he said suddenly, breaking the silence. You're not alone in this. I know it might not seem like it, but I'm here for you. You don't have to face this by yourself. I looked deep into his eyes, seeing sincerity that resonated with me. Thank you, Michael. It means a lot to know I have someone like you in my corner. He smiled, and I felt an unexpected warmth spreading through me. In that moment, I realized that perhaps, just perhaps, this encounter was a turning point. I was beginning to forge a path away from the pain of my past, and Michael was an integral part of that journey. As I prepared to leave his home, I felt a flicker of determination. I was no longer the bride abandoned at the altar. I was Emily, a woman ready to reclaim her life, one step at a time. As I stepped into my grandmother Margaret's cozy home, the familiar scent of freshly baked cookies enveloped me like a warm hug. The moment the door swung open, I was greeted by her beaming smile, the kind that could light up the darkest of days. Emily, my dear, she exclaimed, pulling me into a tight embrace. I melted into her arms, feeling the weight of the world slowly lifting off my shoulders. Grandma, I whispered, my voice barely above a tremor. I don't know what to do. She led me to the living room, which was adorned with family photos and soft, worn furniture. It felt like a sanctuary, a place where the chaos of my life could be forgotten, if only for a moment. As I sank into the plush sofa, she sat across from me, her eyes filled with concern. Tell me everything, sweetheart, she urged, her voice soothing. I took a deep breath, the memories of betrayal and heartbreak flooding my mind. I recounted the events of the day, the wedding, the discovery of Daniel with Sophie, the crushing revelation of our arranged marriage. Each word felt like a stone dropped into a still pond, sending ripples of pain through my heart. Margaret listened intently, nodding as I spoke. When I finished, there was a heavy silence, punctuated only by the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Finally, she broke the quiet. "Emily, there's something you need to know about your father and me," she began, her voice steady but filled with an underlying tension. "Your marriage to Daniel was never just about you two. It was a strategic alliance for our families." I felt my heart race. "What do you mean, Grandma? I thought it was about love." She sighed, looking away momentarily as if searching for the right words. "Your father's business was struggling, and Daniel's family offered to help in exchange for this alliance. They used my health as leverage. I was sick, and they insisted it was the only way to secure our family's future." I was stunned, my mind reeling. So, my entire life has been a lie? My love for Daniel, the wedding? It was all just a business transaction? "Not entirely," Margaret replied gently. "You and Daniel did have a connection, but it was overshadowed by the weight of expectations. You deserve better than that, Emily. You deserve love, not a deal." I felt a mixture of anger and relief washing over me. The truth was a double-edged sword. It cut deep, but it also freed me from the chains of obligation. I can't believe they would do that. "I won't let my life be dictated by their choices anymore," I declared, a newfound strength filling my voice. Margaret reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You are stronger than you realize, my dear. You have the power to reclaim your life, and whatever you decide, I will be here for you." As I sat there, absorbing her words, I realized I didn't need to be bound by my past. I could forge my own path, free from the expectations that had suffocated me for so long. "I will raise my child on my own," I said resolutely, thinking of the life growing within me. "I will not let anyone dictate how I should live or who I should love." Margaret smiled, her eyes glistening with pride. "That's the spirit, Emily. You have the heart of a lion. You can do this." Days turned into weeks, and I found solace in my grandmother's unwavering support. We spent countless hours talking, reminiscing about my childhood and baking together. Each moment helped to heal the wounds in my heart, and I began to envision a future where I could be my own person. Yet as the days passed, I started to feel the subtle signs of change in my body. At first, I brushed them off as stress-related. But one evening, while preparing dinner, it hit me like a lightning bolt. I was pregnant. The realization sent a rush of emotions through me: fear, excitement, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. When I shared the news with Margaret, her eyes widened in disbelief, then softened with tenderness. "Oh, Emily," she whispered, wrapping her arms around me. "This is a beautiful blessing. But I don't know how to do this alone," I admitted, panic creeping into my voice. "You won't be alone," she reassured me. "You have me, and you will find your way. Remember, love can come in many forms." With her encouragement, I began to embrace this new chapter of my life, determined to raise my child with love and strength. I wouldn't let the shadows of my past dictate my future any longer. As I looked out the window at the setting sun, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me, ready to face whatever came next. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself navigating the tumultuous waters of single motherhood with an unexpected ally by my side: Michael. He was a breath of fresh air in my chaotic world, always willing to lend a hand, whether it was helping with the endless diaper changes or simply offering a shoulder to cry on. It was a strange but comforting feeling to have someone who genuinely cared, and I was grateful for his presence. "Emily, are you sure you're all right?" Michael asked one afternoon as I struggled to soothe Ethan, my newborn son, who had decided that nap time was not on his agenda. I looked up from the rocking chair, my heart swelling at the sight of him. He wore a gentle smile, his scruffy hair falling over his forehead, and I couldn't help but chuckle. I think he's just testing my patience, I replied, bouncing Ethan gently in my arms. But I'll survive. I have to, right? Michael chuckled, shaking his head. You're doing a fantastic job, honestly. He's lucky to have you as his mom. His words warmed me, and I felt a sense of camaraderie growing between us. It was more than just friendship. We were two people navigating the challenges of parenthood together, forging a bond that was becoming increasingly significant. As the weeks passed, I also found myself meeting Chloe, Michael's daughter. The first time she came over, I was a bundle of nerves. What if she didn't like me? What if Ethan cried the entire time? But when Chloe walked through the door with her pigtails bouncing and a big smile plastered on her face, all my fears melted away. Can I hold him? She asked, her eyes wide with excitement as she pointed at Ethan, who was peacefully asleep in my arms. I exchanged a glance with Michael, who nodded encouragingly. Carefully, I placed Ethan into Chloe's small hands, and I held my breath. Be gentle, okay? I reminded her, my voice barely above a whisper. Chloe nodded solemnly, cradling my son as if he were the most precious treasure in the world. He's so tiny, she exclaimed, her face lighting up with joy. He looks like a little angel. Watching her interact with Ethan filled me with a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. Michael joined us on the floor, and soon we were all giggling as Chloe made silly faces at the baby. I realized that despite the chaos of my past, I was slowly building a new life, a life filled with laughter, shared moments, and unexpected happiness. One evening, as we sat on the couch after the kids had gone to bed, I found myself leaning against Michael, feeling the weight of the world slowly lift off my shoulders. It was a simple moment, but it felt monumental. Thank you for being here, Michael. I don't know what I would do without you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked down at me, his expression softening. You've been through so much, Emily. You deserve happiness. I'm just glad I can help. Our eyes locked for a moment, and I felt my heart flutter. I hadn't intended for my feelings to deepen, but there was something undeniable between us. A connection that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. I wanted to lean in closer, to close the distance, but I hesitated, unsure of how to navigate this new territory. I never imagined my life would turn out like this, I confessed, breaking the silence. I thought I would be marrying Daniel and living a fairy tale. Instead, here I am, a single mom, and it's not all bad. Michael chuckled softly. It's definitely not what you planned, but sometimes the best things come from the unexpected. Like you? I teased, nudging him playfully. He laughed, and the sound filled the room with warmth. Exactly, he replied, his smile widening. And I think we're just getting started. In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. Maybe I could learn to embrace this new chapter of my life, one filled with laughter, friendship, and perhaps even love. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was moving forward, ready to face whatever came next. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow in the cozy living room where Michael and I had built our little family. Ethan was napping in his crib, his soft breaths a comforting sound in the otherwise quiet house. I sat on the couch, a cup of tea cradled in my hands, my thoughts racing as they often did these days. It had been a few months since Michael and I decided to live together, and every day felt like a new adventure. I put the cup down, feeling a familiar flutter in my stomach. I had taken the test that morning, and the 2 pink lines confirmed what I had suspected. I was pregnant again. A wave of joy washed over me. I could hardly believe how much my life had changed since that fateful day at the church. I had gone from heartbroken and lost to a woman with dreams, hopes, and a future filled with love. I couldn't wait to share the news with Michael. "Hey, you!" I called out as I heard him shuffling around in the kitchen. He came into the living room, wiping his hands on a dish towel, a smile spreading across his face. "What's going on?" he asked, tilting his head in curiosity. "I have something to tell you," I said, my heart racing with excitement. "Okay, you're scaring me a little. Is it good news?" I nodded vigorously. "It's wonderful news! I'm pregnant!" His eyes widened, and I could see the joy bursting forth. "Are you serious? This is amazing, Emily!" He rushed over to me, pulling me into a warm embrace. I felt safe in his arms, his love a protective shield against the world. "Can you believe it? We're going to have another baby!" I said, pulling back to look into his eyes. "I can believe it, and I can't wait to start this journey with you. We're going to make the best family ever," he replied, his voice filled with conviction. As the days passed, our lives were busy with preparations for the new addition to our family. We spent evenings painting the nursery and discussing names, which brought us even closer. I cherished these moments, feeling a sense of belonging I had never known before. Then came the day of the family gathering at Margaret's house. She had insisted on celebrating our little family, and I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Daniel had been invited too, and I wasn't sure how I would handle seeing him after everything that had transpired. My heart raced as I thought about our past, the betrayal and the pain. But I had grown stronger, and I knew I had to face him. As the gathering began, the house filled with laughter and the aroma of Margaret's delicious cooking. I watched as Michael played with Ethan, their bond growing deeper by the day. Just then, the front door creaked open, and I felt my stomach drop. Daniel stepped inside, looking somewhat out of place but determined. "Emily," he said softly, approaching me. I could see a change in him. His demeanor was different, more subdued than the man I once knew. "Daniel," I replied, mustering every ounce of courage I had. "What are you doing here?" "I came to apologize," he said, his voice earnest. "I know I hurt you deeply, and I regret every moment. I've had time to think, and I want you to know that I only want the best for you and the kids." I felt a surge of emotions, a mix of anger and confusion. "You think an apology is enough? You shattered my trust, my entire life." "I know, and I don't expect forgiveness right away," he said, looking down at his feet. "But I've changed, Emily. I've been working on myself. I want to be a better person for Ethan and our future child." His words lingered in the air, and I could see the sincerity in his eyes. "It's not just about you anymore, Daniel. This is about our children and the life we want to provide for them," I said, my voice steady. "I understand. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right," he replied, his gaze unwavering. As I looked at him, I realized that while the past could never be undone, perhaps there was room for healing. "Then let's start fresh. For our kids," I said, extending my hand.